13 things only 1980s California kids will remember. Not things you've read about, things you felt. The exact weight of a Saturday morning when there was nowhere you had to be, the smell of sunscreen and asphalt before 9 a.m., the way a certain song on the radio could turn a regular Tuesday into something that felt like it mattered. If you grew up in California in the 80s, if that was your sky, your summer, your Friday night, this one is for you. Let's go back. It started before your parents were awake. You came downstairs in your socks, as quietly as you could manage, and you turned the television on low. The tube took a few seconds to warm up, that slight flicker before the picture snapped in, and then there it was, Saturday morning. You had a system. You already knew what was on and when. You'd thought about it on Friday night. The cereal was important too, not just any cereal, the one with the prize inside, or the one whose box you could stare at for 20 minutes while Bugs Bunny did something you'd already seen 4 times and still thought was the funniest thing in the world. Nobody told you to sit there. Nobody scheduled it for you. You just did it, every week like it was church. Because for a California kid in the 80s, it basically was. If you grew up in California in the 80s, there is a specific smell living in your memory right now. Rental skates, industrial carpet, the faint fog of popcorn and cheap cologne, and underneath it all, that particular combination of rubber wheels on hardwood that you could feel in your chest before you even laced up. The skating rink was not just a place, it was its own universe, with its own rules, its own social order, its own currency. Getting asked to skate during the couple song was the Olympics. The DJ controlled everything, what song came next, whether this was a fast session or a slow one, whether tonight was going to be the night something happened or the night nothing did. You fell down more than you'd ever admit. You got back up before anyone important could see. You circled that rink for 3 hours and came home with sore ankles and a feeling you couldn't quite name, something between exhilaration and wishing the night hadn't ended. There were skating rinks across this whole state that held entire childhoods inside their walls. Most of them are parking lots now. Nobody goes to the mall anymore. I don't mean that as a complaint. I mean it as a fact that still doesn't feel entirely real to anyone who was there. Because in California in the 80s, the mall wasn't a place you went to shop. The mall was where you went to exist. You didn't need money, though it helped. You needed a ride and 2 or 3 hours with nowhere better to be. You wandered. You went into warehouse music and spent 45 minutes going through cassette tapes you couldn't afford. You got an orange Julius and walked slowly like someone with very important business to attend to. The mall taught you something your parents couldn't, what it felt like to move through a space on your own terms. No supervision, no agenda, just you and your friends making decisions, however small, about where to go and what to look at. It was the first taste of independence that didn't feel stolen. And the food court, don't even get me started. That smell hit you from the parking lot, and it meant something. It meant you were here, you were out. Today was going to be a good day. Quarters were currency. Not because they bought much, a single play, maybe 2 if you were good, but because they represented something. Possibility, the chance that this time you'd get further than you'd ever gotten before. You could hear the arcade before you walked in, at wall of sound, beeping, chiming, the synthesized fanfare of a high score. It was a specific frequency that did something to your nervous system. It woke you up. It told you this was the place to be. And if the arcade happened to be inside a Shakey's Pizza, or if it was a birthday party night at Chuck E. Cheese with its smell of industrial cheese and possibility, then you were operating at full capacity. You were exactly where a California kid in the 80s was supposed to be. The tokens, the prizes behind the counter that you'd been studying for 3 visits, the slightly sticky tabletops, the pizza that is objectively not the best pizza anyone had ever eaten, and yet somehow tasted exactly right. Context is everything.
There's a reason people who grew up in California are insufferable about fast food.
And it's not snobbery. It's geography. It's memory. It's the specific, irreplaceable experience of pulling into an In-N-Out drive-thru on a hot afternoon when someone's older sibling had the car. And that smell, warm beef and fresh-cut fries hitting you like something holy. Del Taco after a night out. Jack in the Box at midnight, the neon sign the only light for 3 blocks. The In-N-Out order you had memorized before you turned 10. These weren't just restaurants. They were coordinates on your personal map of California. They marked specific moments, who you were with, what you were celebrating or avoiding, what time of year it was. Other parts of the country had fast food. California kids had ritual. Forget the postcards, forget the movies. The real California beach experience in the 80s wasn't perfectly lit, it wasn't choreographed. It was a too-hot parking lot, a beach towel that was somehow already full of sand before you even sat down, and a radio on somebody's shoulder playing something you'd remember forever, even if you couldn't tell me the title right now. It was showing up on a random Wednesday in July with nothing but a towel and a few dollars for a hot dog from the stand near the pier. It was the way the salt dried on your skin on the drive home, windows down, sun-tired, not talking much because you didn't need to. California kids didn't treat the beach like a destination. They treated it like a backyard. And that specific, casual, totally taken-for-granted relationship with the Pacific Ocean is something no other American childhood had. Not like that. Not embedded so deep in the ordinary week that you could just go. On a Wednesday, with nothing planned, just because the day called for it. June. The last day of school wasn't the beginning of summer. It was the announcement of it. Summer itself started sometime around the 3rd day, when the structure fell away completely, and you realized there was nothing, absolutely nothing that needed to happen today. In California, that feeling had a texture. It smelled like sunscreen warming on skin, like cut grass and chlorine, like the inside of a car that had been sitting in the sun for 2 hours, that particular heat that hit you when you opened the door. You rode your bike until the light changed. You ate dinner late because nobody wanted to go inside. You stayed out until the street lights came on, which wasn't a curfew exactly, but it was a signal. And even then, you stretched it just a little, just to see. California summers in the 80s had no agenda. They had no plan. They had nothing but time. And that was the whole point. That smell. Sunscreen and asphalt, and the particular sweetness of a day with nowhere to be. The drive-in was its own kind of magic. Not the movie, though the movie mattered. The whole thing, the ritual of it. You piled into the car, usually with more people than the car was technically meant to hold, and you claimed your spot in that flat gravel field as the sky went from orange to purple to black. You had the little speaker that hooked onto the window and crackled if you turned it too loud. You had the concession stand with its fluorescent light and its popcorn that cost 3 times what it should have. You had the intermission countdown with the dancing hot dog. And at some point, usually around the second feature, when the little kids had fallen asleep in the back, the adults got quiet, and you realized you were watching something larger than just a screen. You were watching the whole night, the stars coming through the windshield, the sound of California summer all around you. California had more drive-ins per square mile than almost anywhere in the country. It made sense. The sky was part of the experience. Before you could drive, you could ride. And in California in the 80s, a bike wasn't a toy, it was infrastructure. It was how you got to your friend's house, to the corner store, to the park where everyone was going to be later. The range of your world was exactly as large as how far you were willing to pedal, and you were willing to go pretty far. No phone to tell your parents where you were, no GPS, just the general agreement that you'd be back before dinner, enforced by nothing except the expectation that you would. The freedom was real. It was unsupervised. It was every afternoon. The phone was in the kitchen or the hallway. It had a cord, a real one. If you wanted to call a friend, you had to remember their number, actually remember it, 7 digits kept somewhere in your head alongside everything else. And if their line was busy, you got the busy signal, that rhythmic rejection, and you just hung up and waited and tried again. The calls you made were specific, intentional. You called because you needed to arrange an actual meeting at an actual place at an actual time. Spontaneity required planning. Somehow, it worked perfectly. Nobody handed you a device. Boredom was something you had to solve yourself. And the solutions, the games you invented, the places you went, the trouble you got into and out of, those solutions became the memories. The unstructured afternoon was the curriculum. California in the 80s gave you weather and space and a general understanding that children were not meant to be supervised every moment of every day. You were expected to go outside and figure something out. Most of the time, you did. Friday night meant a decision. You walked up and down those aisles, the new releases on one wall, the cardboard boxes facing out with their hand-painted signs, and you had one shot to get it right. Whatever you picked was what the whole night was going to be. The pressure was real, the stakes felt enormous, and there was something genuinely good about a ritual that made a Friday night's entertainment into a small, deliberate choice, made communally with your family or your friends, standing in a store that smelled like plastic and carpet and possibility. Those Saturday mornings. You didn't know at the time that you were collecting them. You didn't know you were building something, a texture of experience that would sit in your chest for the rest of your life, retrievable at the smell of sunscreen, or a certain song, or the sound of wheels on hardwood on a Friday night. California in the 80s was a specific world, not a perfect one, but a specific one. One with a weight and a temperature and a sound that belonged entirely to the people who were there. That's what memory is, really. Not a record, a feeling. And if you're watching this right now, if any of this took you somewhere, then it's still in there. All of it, waiting. It didn't go anywhere. Neither did you.